This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Today being Wednesday, we're dealing with a viewer's question, and before we get into this week's offering, I'll just mention that if you have any questions or queries of a guitar or music related nature and you think I'm the chap to answer them, then get in touch. You can see my website address rather at the top of the screen there. Link in the description. Use the email form there to get in touch, or you can go old school and just type an email. jrguitartuition@gmail.com is where you'll find me, or you can leave a comment below this or any of my other videos. One chap who got in touch via the website is called Les, and this was his question.
Hi John, you've likely already covered this, but I'm curious how you know what key or keys you can go to when writing a song. I listen to some of your stuff on Spotify, and you always are able to pull off key changes that work in your tunes. You also do this a lot in your gear demos. How do you know which key will be a good one to change to? Is there any rules to how it's done? Thanks, Les.
So chord sequences and that manner of thing, I've done plenty of videos on that, but it's certainly been a while since I've done any kind of video about key changes and how to incorporate them into a piece of music. So I'll tell you what, here is a piece of music that is changing key all over the place. Keep an eye on the bottom left hand corner of the screen where you'll see the chord changes going past, and see if you can work out, in advance of me telling you, exactly what keys I'm going between. Here it is. So there you go. Probably had a little bit of a 70s flavour to it, didn't it? I mean, I grew up in the 70s, and, you know, the top 40 radio stations were full of bands like ELO, ABBA, Queen, 10cc, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, the one thing that all of those bands knew how to do was put together an engaging chord sequence, and I guess it probably kind of rubbed off on me. And it's always something that appeals to me, a song with a good core chord sequence at its heart. Coming up next is basically how I tend to think in terms of, you know, key changes and putting chords together, modulating between different keys and all of that kind of stuff. Here's an explanation.
Here is the explanation.
Okay, like many things, when you start taking a look at what makes music tick, the cycle of fifths is never far from the surface, and this is very much the case here. What we can see on screen here is the cycle of fifths, and in red around the outside you can see I've shown the 6 main chords in each of the keys in the cycle of fifths. So for instance, in the key of C major there at the 12 o'clock position, we've got C, F and G as major chords, A minor, D minor and E minor as minor chords. So what the cycle of fifths is really good for in this context is figuring out how closely related any two keys are. For example, you can see either side of the key of C, we've got the key of F and the key of G, and there's a fair degree of overlap between the key of C and those two chords, which means that any key change that you do, moving from the key of C to the key of F, for example, is going to be, subtle, which is what happens in the first 4 bars of what I think of as the verse section for that song. We go from a C to a G to a B flat to an F. Now the C, the G and the F, as you can see, are all in the key of C, but the B flat chord isn't there. We've kind of borrowed that from the key of F, which is 1 step anti-clockwise. And that gives just a little bit of a variety in the chord changes, but it's nothing dramatic, so to speak. That comes later in the verse sequence, where we go from the C chord, after we've gone C, G, B flat, F, we go back to the C, and then a D minor, which you can see are both coming from the key of C. And then I have 2 chords coming after that, a D flat and an E flat. Now if we look round this cycle here, hopefully you can see my mouse pointer moving there, you can see hopefully that the D flat and the E flat both occur together in the key of A flat. Not only that, but that's the only key where they'll both occur together. So we've done a fairly subtle little key change from C and borrow the B flat chord from the key of F and then back to the key of C again, and then we do a whopping big old chord key change round here to the key of A flat for the D flat and E flat chords. Now one thing that helps if you're going to do a fairly kind of distant key change like that is to try and look for common tones. You can see, I don't know how well this is coming up when I'm in the little kind of compartment in the corner of the screen there, but there's a D minor chord, there's a D flat chord. They both have this F note in them. It's right there in the D minor chord, and it's right there in the D flat chord. So if you can find a note which is common to the chord in the key that you're kind of leaving and the first chord in the key that you're going to, like there, that F note's in both the D minor and the D flat chords. That provides a nice little kind of bridge. It stops it sounding too jarring and unsettling. So then after that D flat and E flat, I'm back into a G chord again, which takes me back into the key of C. Then for like the chorus sections, as I think of it, what I did was I basically moved the whole thing wholesale from the key of C right over here to the key of G. I'm using the chords mainly of D, C, G and E minor. There is an argument to say that I'm actually focusing more on a D chord tonality there, which would mean that we were sort of focusing on a D chord in the key of G, that means that you're in the Mixolydian mode. But, you know, basically I was just thinking in terms of the key of G for this, you know. So I've got the D to the C, to the C, to the G. Do that essentially 3 times. The only difference is on the 3rd time, instead of going to the G, I go to an E minor. And then, what do I do after that? Well, we go kind of back round in this direction to the key of F, and I use the B flat and the F chord, and then come back with the key of G to get me back into the key of C again. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm kind of mainly in this area here, and in the verses I'm doing a subtle key change, borrowing from this key over here, getting myself the B flat chord, a little bit more of a dramatic key change coming all the way down here for the D flat and E flat chords, and then when I come back to the into the verse again and go to the chorus, I'm going 1 step this way, you know, to go to the key of G mainly, and then just bounce around and then back into the key of C again. For the bridge section where it goes to the F sharp minor chord, what I'm doing there is I'm just basically playing around with keys that have an F sharp minor chord in them. So I think I use, what chords did I use there? I use an F sharp minor, a D, an E and an A, and I also used a B chord as well. So you can see I'm kind of going over to this key here, just kind of 1 step round the cycle just to give myself that B chord. But that's basically what I was doing, just kind of noodling around in keys that'll give me an F sharp minor chord. Oh, and I think I used a G chord as well in there, didn't I? Yeah, so coming back 1 step this way, but you can see we've got the F sharp minor in this key. So all of those keys there, the key of D, the key of A, the key of E, they all have that F sharp minor chord in them. And I was just thinking in terms of playing around in this section of the cycle for that segment of the tune. And yeah, that's how I tend to think really when I'm putting a chord sequence together. I'm not thinking in terms of being in a key. I'm thinking in terms of whereabouts I am on this cycle of fifths, and you know, how many steps either side I can go in order to either make it sound like a subtle key change or make it sound more like a, you know, a bit more of a dramatic one, like that change from C major to A flat major. Anyway, I can tell I'm starting to waffle, so we'll wrap that up there. Before we do though, one thing that many people would tend to ask is, when you've got something with this many key changes in it, how do you play over it? Well, what I would tend to do is I would tend to block it out in terms of pentatonic scales. So for the C, G, B flat, F, C and D minor chords, all of those, I'm just probably going to play a C major pentatonic over the top of all of that. And then when it goes to like the 2 chords from the key of A flat, the D flat and the E flat, I'll just go to an A flat major pentatonic. So I'd be thinking maybe, I don't know whether you can see this, but there's C major pentatonic. And here's A flat major pentatonic. Like that. And just goes to show, if you know where your pentatonic box patterns are instinctively, that makes that a lot easier. I've done a video on that in the past, so I'll probably link to that in the description. And as I'm playing through with those sort of pentatonic templates, as I tend to think of them, I'll probably just liberally scatter and garnish a few chord tones along the way. Just any time I want to land on a note and make it a prominent note, I'll make sure it's a note that's there in the underlying chord. So that is my approach to writing chord sequences, and a little bit of a guide of how I would play over them. Now you know what to do. Go away and have some fun with it. And as usual, you will find all the resources for today's lesson up on my Patreon page. There's the address, and the link is in the description. $3 or £2.50 a month gets you access to all of these additional goodies that go along with these YouTube videos. So what are you getting today then? Well, you're going to get that video of me playing that piece of music. I'm also going to give you it as an audio track. map out the chord sequence in a PDF form, and like I hinted at in that last little clip there, I'm going to kind of map out which pentatonic scale to use here, there and everywhere, should you wish to play over it. And, as I say, I'll link in the description to that video I did about, locating pentatonics on the neck when you need to change quickly and effortlessly, hopefully, from one to another. So, you get the jam track, and I'll put that explanation clip in as well. I'll tell you what, I'll do that cycle of fifths thing as a PDF as well, so you've got all of the information and everything you need to write your own chord sequences, or just have a jam over the one that I came up with earlier today. But that is pretty much the video for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen and found it useful and informative in some small way. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. We drink beer and talk about music and guitars and all manner of other things. It's a fantastic way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.